There is a law that can dissolve the weight you are carrying, and once you hear it, you will never look at debt the same way again. You believe your debt is numbers, balances, deadlines, pressure. But I tell you the truth. Debt is first a state of mind, and the only reason it feels permanent is because you have been trained to think from fear instead of from power. The chains were placed around your thoughts long before they tightened around your finances. Let me ask you something deeply personal. How many years of your life have been stolen by the silent dread of money? How many nights have you gone to sleep with that dull ache in your chest, whispering, "I don't know how I'll get out of this"? How many times have you held your breath before opening a message or an envelope because you feared what waited inside? Debt is not just an economic burden, it is an emotional one. It corrodes confidence. It silences ambition. It convinces a man he is smaller than his circumstances. But that illusion ends the moment the mind learns to command itself. Debt does not shrink when money appears. Debt shrinks when fear disappears. There is a principle, rarely understood, even more rarely applied, that can erase debt as swiftly as it once accumulated, not by miracle, not by escape, but by law, a law that transforms the debtor into the master, the fearful into the definite, the overwhelmed into the architect of his own abundance. Consider this. What if your debt is not the enemy you think it is? What if it is the very pressure required to awaken the greatness you have ignored? What if the weight you feel is not punishment, but a calling, a demand that you stop drifting through financial life like a leaf caught in the wind and step into the authority you were always meant to wield? Let that thought breathe inside you for a moment. Feel how different it is from the thoughts that have ruled you. The truth is this: your debt does not hold you. Your thoughts do. And the moment you think like a man who cannot be enslaved by circumstances, those circumstances begin to rearrange themselves with astonishing speed. Picture a man sitting at his kitchen table, drowning in bills. He believes he is at the mercy of creditors, until one idea enters his mind, one thought that flips his understanding. He stands, not because the bills disappeared, but because he discovered a power within himself that debt cannot touch. That single shift, internal, invisible, starts a chain of events that leads to opportunity, strategy, income, service, and ultimately freedom. The world sees the end result and calls it luck. But the real transformation happened long before the money came. It happened the moment he refused to think as a debtor and decided to think as a creator. You may not realize it yet, but you are standing at the edge of the same turning point. Debt is not erased by desperation. It is erased by definiteness. When a man writes his intention with such clarity, such emotion, such conviction that his subconscious accepts it as truth, his entire life begins to move toward its fulfillment. Ideas appear. People appear. Courage appears, the path appears, and the debt that once felt immovable begins to crumble. But let me warn you, if you listen to this as entertainment, nothing will change. You will walk away the same, carrying the same weight, repeating the same fears, living under the same pressure. Debt will continue to grow fangs as long as you think like a man without power. However, if you listen as a man ready to reclaim his authority, if you listen as a man willing to obey the law that governs wealth, you will discover that the weight you carried was held in place only by a belief, and beliefs can be replaced faster than numbers can be counted. Ask yourself now, what would happen if, for the next 30 days, you refused to think a single thought from debt, not one thought of fear, not one thought of insufficiency, not one thought of defeat? What if you spoke aloud only what you intend to create, not what you fear to lose? You may not realize it yet, but that alone could erase more debt than any paycheck you have ever earned. Debt collapses under the pressure of a mind that has become definite. For the man who decides to think richly, act richly, plan richly, and serve richly, debt becomes temporary, an inconvenience, not an identity. Most people try to solve their financial burdens from the outside in. More hours, more strain, more hope that something will change. But no lasting wealth has ever been built from external struggle. Wealth begins within. And the moment you master that interior world, the exterior one must obey. So let me speak plainly. You are not trapped. You are not too late. You are not broken. You are simply one decision away from the mind that can erase your debt faster than fear can accumulate it. But you must be willing to listen with the intent to act. You must be willing to hear something that contradicts everything you were taught about money. You must be willing to let these next words strip fear from your thinking and replace it with definiteness, faith, and command. If you give me a few minutes, fully, fiercely, without drifting, I will show you the exact principle that turns the debtor into the master. The very principle that has freed men who owed 10 times what you owe. The principle that wealthy men use instinctively, though they seldom confess it. Let this be the moment you stop rehearsing fear and begin rehearsing power. Let this be the moment your identity shifts from I owe to I own. Now listen closely. What comes next has the power to erase more than your debt. It can erase the powerless version of you that debt created. Debt is not a condition of your finances. It is a condition of your mind. The chains that bind you are invisible, made of thought, habit, and fear. Men believe they are bound by creditors, yet they are bound only by consent. They have surrendered dominion over their own thinking and accepted servitude to circumstance. No man can be poor unless he first agrees to think as a poor man. The mind, not the marketplace, governs freedom. Every limitation, every unpaid bill, every sleepless night spent in worry was first formed by a thought accepted as true. Men bow before numbers because they believe numbers to be law, but numbers are shadows. Thought is the source of light. The instant a man commands his inner world, his outer figures must obey. The problem is not that you owe, it is that you believe you owe power to fear. From the beginning, you were trained to think small. You were told to respect scarcity, to live within boundaries that did not exist. Parents said, "We cannot afford it." Teachers said, "Life is hard." Preachers said, "Poverty is noble." These phrases, repeated through generations, have hypnotized nations. They are man-made laws, not divine ones. They have no authority except what you give them. Poverty begins as permission. You have permitted doubt to speak in the tone of truth. You have allowed fear to sit in the chair of reason. You have permitted others to define what is possible for you. That permission must now be revoked. To end debt, one must first end obedience to the idea that wealth is rare. The first act of liberation is awareness. Recognize that debt is not digits, but emotion, an invisible weight pressing against your chest. Every time you think, "I cannot," you tighten the chain. Every time you delay a decision out of fear, you polish the lock. Yet the key has always rested within you. It is belief, directed, disciplined, and definite. There once lived a man who carried debts so heavy he could barely stand beneath them. His table was covered in unpaid notices. His mind was filled with self-condemnation. One evening he struck a match and burned the pile of bills, not to escape his duty, but to destroy his fear. In that fire he made a vow that never again would he think from lack. He did not run from his obligations, he transformed them into determination. Within months, he attracted new opportunities, raised his income, and paid every cent owed. His act was not financial, it was spiritual. He bought freedom with thought. Faith is the only true currency of the unseen world. Gold and paper are tools of exchange in commerce, but faith is the medium of exchange in creation. The man who possesses it can purchase anything life contains, for faith commands invisible resources to appear. As a merchant exchanges coin for goods, so the thinker exchanges faith for results. He who lacks faith must borrow endlessly from others. He who possesses faith lends it to the universe and receives back multiplied return. Debt is servitude in disguise. The debtor rises each day and consults his fears before he consults his faith. He plans from worry instead of wisdom. He allows the idea of owing to dictate his conduct. Yet no one forces him. His guard is his own belief. The cage of poverty has no bars except the ones he refuses to stop building. To free yourself, you must perform an act of mental rebellion. Refuse to obey fear as though it were law. The moment you say, "I will no longer think as a debtor," the invisible warden drops his keys. For debt is not conquered through payment alone. It is conquered by mastering the emotion that created it. A man may pay his bills and remain poor if he continues to think from insufficiency. But a man may think richly and soon find the means to pay, for the mind that commands supply attracts it. Freedom is not gained by accident. It must be claimed in posture, tone, and conviction. A man cannot think as victim and master simultaneously. The posture of abundance, shoulders back, breath steady, gaze upward, is itself a prayer of power. Infinite intelligence responds not to complaint, but to command. Stand upright in body, and your spirit will remember how to stand upright in thought. Abraham Lincoln knew this law, though he may not have named it so. His life was a ledger filled with emotional debts, ridicule, failure, grief. Yet he paid each loss with courage. His mind remained solvent when the nation itself was bankrupt of hope. He did not wait for conditions to favor him. He used defeat as currency to purchase wisdom. Spiritual solvency precedes material wealth. The man who refuses despair is already rich in the eyes of law. Each morning, before touching work or worry, speak aloud your declaration of solvency. I owe no fear, I owe no doubt, I owe only service, faith, and forward motion. These words are more than affirmation. They are instruction to your subconscious. Repetition engraves truth upon the mind until belief becomes nature. Say it until you feel it. Feel it until you become it. Observe what happens when you stand in this authority. Those around you will begin to sense it. Creditors who once pressed will soften. Employers who once overlooked will notice. Friends who once pitied will respect. The world adjusts itself to the vibration of certainty. You need not beg for cooperation. Your new tone commands it. The transformation will begin quietly. Your speech will lose apology. Your walk will carry assurance. Even your silence will gain weight. Those who knew the old you will not understand, but they will obey. The law of vibration does not ask permission. It enforces correspondence. The moment your thought rises, your conditions must follow. That is not philosophy. It is law. The mind that commands itself commands its fortune. A man may labor for years and earn little because he labors under self-doubt. Another may labor less yet, attract abundance because he works under faith. The difference is not effort, but inner direction. You must begin to think from ownership before you own. Do not say, I will be free. Say, I am free. Do not say, I hope to earn. Say, I already serve abundance. The subconscious does not wait for proof. It obeys the tone of belief. It shapes conditions to match conviction. Understand this. The figures that haunt you are reflections of past thought. They are not predictions of future limitation. Each bill represents an old vibration now ready to dissolve. The moment you cease feeding it fear, it loses form. Energy withdrawn from worry is energy invested in creation. Stop counting your debt and start counting your power. If you knew how powerful thought is, you would never speak lack again. Every sentence is a command, every belief a decree. The man who says, I cannot, becomes the proof of his words. The man who says, I can and I will, builds the ladder out of his own voice. To think richly is to legislate for destiny. Remember that the invisible always precedes the visible. The tree comes from seed, not soil. The fortune comes from faith, not coin. The master builds inwardly what the world will later call success. To try to fix outer conditions while the inner remains weak is to repair a reflection while ignoring the mirror. It is easy to mistake the symptom for the cause. Debt appears external, but its roots are internal. To attack it with worry is to water the very seed you wish to uproot. To dissolve it, you must plant new seed, definite faith, calm gratitude, and unbroken persistence. The soil of the subconscious will accept nothing else. The man who understands this law no longer panics at obligation. He regards each bill not as enemy, but as evidence that life has trusted him with circulation. He pays with gratitude, knowing the act keeps the channel open. He does not curse the need to repay. He thanks the universe for allowing him to prove reliability. Freedom, then, is not the absence of responsibility. It is the mastery of it. To handle duty with joy is to rise above it. The debtor begs for relief. The master gives thanks for opportunity. The first seeks escape. The second creates order. These are two kinds of men living in one world, and life always sides with the latter. Do not confuse pride with freedom. True freedom is humility before law, knowing that infinite intelligence governs increase and that your task is to align, not to fight. The proud man says, "I can do it alone." The free man says, "I can do it through law." One exhausts himself, the other multiplies himself. Faith is the bridge between unseen supply and visible abundance. Cross it daily. Each act of faith, each small decision made without fear, shortens the distance between bondage and liberty. It may begin with one confident phone call, one honest conversation, one idea acted upon. The chain breaks link by link through action, inspired by belief. When discouragement returns, and it will, remember that the old self is dying, not debt increasing. The discomfort you feel is the shedding of limitation. Stand firm. Speak faith, even when trembling. Every declaration of power plants another root of freedom. I have watched men rise from bankruptcy to fortune without changing occupation, city, or company. What they changed was their mental residence. They moved from the house of fear to the mansion of definiteness. The moment their inner address changed, life delivered new mail. Therefore, begin your liberation not with money, but with mind. Stop looking at what is missing and begin commanding what must appear. The mind that knows it is rich creates opportunities invisible to others. It notices chance where others see impossibility. It acts decisively while others hesitate. It is guided, supported, and protected by the same law that grows the acorn into oak. The time has come to revoke fear's permission to occupy your thought. You owe no allegiance to limitation. You owe no worship to worry. You owe only faith, service, and definite action. From this moment forward, treat every fearful thought as trespasser and evict it without mercy. You will know you are free when your peace no longer depends on figures. When you can look at a bill without trembling, when you can speak of money without apology, when you can walk with calm certainty though your pockets be empty. That is freedom. For the man who can remain rich in spirit cannot remain poor, in fact. Remember always, the mind that commands itself commands its fortune. The world is not waiting to free you. It is waiting to obey you. Freedom begins not when debts are paid, but when doubt is overruled. The instant you think as owner, life recognizes you as such. Say it once more, and let it echo through the chambers of your being. I owe no fear. I owe no doubt. I owe only service, faith, and forward motion. Let that be your daily decree. Live by it, and you will discover that poverty was never your reality. It was only your permission. You are the architect of your liberty. You are the keeper of your keys. And now that you have seen the lock clearly, you will never again mistake the shadow of debt for the substance of defeat. Freedom begins now, in thought, in posture, in faith. The mind that stands upright cannot be enslaved. The man who claims dominion within commands it without. From this moment forth, think from ownership before you own, and wealth will follow as faithfully as the shadow follows the sun. Most men regard debt as an enemy, when in truth it is a teacher. It reveals to the observant man the places where his thought has drifted from law, where he has traded faith for fear, and where he has allowed chance to overrule principle. Debt is not a curse, it is a mirror. What it reflects is not deficiency of money, but deficiency of definiteness. To destroy that mirror before reading its message is folly. A man who breaks the mirror does not fix his face. Likewise, a man who hides his debt without changing his thinking only multiplies it. Debt remains until thought changes. The law of reversal is the act of turning the very pressure of debt into power, of converting burden into building material, of using adversity as energy for dominion. The world teaches men to resist problems. Yet what you resist persists. The emotion of resistance feeds the condition it hates. The more you curse your debt, the tighter it grips you. The more you worry over shortage, the more shortage multiplies. The law of reversal teaches, what you embrace with understanding, you can transform. You cannot outrun the lessons life assigns. They must be learned or they will return with higher interest. When you meet a burden with calm attention and a spirit of mastery, you turn weakness into wisdom. That wisdom becomes wealth. Every bill that arrives at your door carries an invisible message. Here is a lesson in circulation. Will you master me or serve me? Consider the example of Henry Ford. When his company faced collapse, when creditors knocked at every door and the newspapers predicted his ruin, Ford did not shrink. He reversed the current of fear. Instead of reducing his output, he expanded it. Instead of dismissing workers, he improved the factory. Instead of bowing to panic, he said, "We will build." That decision summoned investors, engineers, and results. The world calls it genius. I call it obedience to law. Ford knew something few men learn, that the same force that threatens to destroy can be commanded to build. Pressure and opportunity are twins. When channeled by faith, they become power. When scattered by fear, they become paralysis. Every debt carries power equal to its pain. Reverse the direction of that power, and you will find within it the means to repay it. The first act of reversal is to cease condemning the condition. The debtor must stop saying, "This should not be." It is, and its purpose is instruction. Ask instead, what must this teach me about law, order, and circulation? Every financial pressure reveals the next step of growth. If you face it bravely, it becomes servant. If you hide, it becomes master. Debt, when viewed correctly, is evidence of faith once given. You believed enough to borrow. The same faith that built obligation can build abundance when aimed rightly. It is misdirected power, not lost power. Redirect it. Look at each obligation and say, "You exist because I once believed. Now I believe better, and therefore you will serve a higher purpose." Every man who has risen from bondage to dominion has practiced this reversal, whether consciously or not. They refused to see debt as shame. They saw it as unfinished exchange. A bill unpaid is simply value waiting for equivalent expression. The creative mind asks not, "How can I escape this?" but "How can I serve at a level equal to this?" The answer always appears, for law cannot deny the man who asks constructively. Let me tell you of a man I once met, a humble clerk in a small business. His debts had grown beyond his income. Fear followed him from morning until night. But one evening, he resolved to reverse his thought. He decided to outgive his wage. Each day he stayed after hours improving the store's records, organizing inventory, helping customers beyond expectation. His employer, moved by the clerk's quiet diligence, promoted him within months. His increased salary erased the debts he had feared for years. He did not beg, he did not flee, he served. He used giving to cancel owing. This is the second law of reversal. Service dissolves debt faster than worry. The universe cancels obligation through usefulness. The man who gives more than he owes soon finds that life itself pays his balance. Every extra effort, every act of courtesy, every moment of cheerful persistence adds invisible credit to your account. You cannot outgive law. When you think of your obligations, do not picture a chain. Picture a ladder. Each payment, each act of discipline, each sacrifice is a rung. Step on it firmly and rise. The man who curses his debts digs a pit. The man who blesses them climbs. To reverse fear into faith, you must also reverse language. Never again say, I cannot pay. Say, I am learning to balance. Never say, I am drowning in bills. Say, I am mastering circulation. Your words are blueprints for your future. The subconscious mind builds whatever you speak with emotion. Guard the tongue, for it writes the contracts of destiny. The emotion of fear, when transmuted, becomes energy. It is life condensed. Every tremor of worry is creative force awaiting redirection. Use it. Take the urgency you feel and apply it to constructive planning. Write your debts on paper. Do not fear them. Facing them dissolves half their power. Beside each, list an action, a skill, or an idea that could offset it. This simple act transforms chaos into order, despair into design. Order is the beginning of dominion. The universe itself is mathematical. It obeys sequence, measure, rhythm. To bring order to your affairs is to align with the rhythm of creation. Once your plan is definite, infinite intelligence moves to assist. Confusion repels aid. Definiteness attracts it. Faith without action is illusion. After you have reversed thought, move at once. Call the creditor with confidence. Make an arrangement without apology. Approach opportunities boldly. Do not delay waiting for courage. Courage is built by motion. Action clears fear as wind clears fog. Every time you confront what frightened you, you add strength to your spiritual credit. You begin to feel a new dignity. The posture of the debtor fades. The bearing of the master emerges. Soon, you will notice that even those who once demanded payment now speak with respect. The vibration of responsibility commands cooperation. Understand that reversal is not denial. It does not pretend debt is pleasant. It simply changes its use. It transforms poison into medicine. What once drained you now drives you. This is not imagination. It is application of spiritual chemistry. Faith is the fire that performs this alchemy. Without it, reversal remains theory. With it, everything becomes possible. Faith does not ask how, it says because. Because law is constant. Because thought creates. Because service multiplies. Faith acts as if the answer already exists, and therefore it does. If ever you doubt, remember Henry Ford and his decision to build when others fled. Remember the clerk who outgave his wage. Remember every man who faced obligation with courage and turned it into power. Their stories are not legend. They are law in action. Make this your daily declaration. Every obligation is an opportunity. Every weight is a workout for my will. I use all that I owe to prove that I am owed greatness by life itself. Say it when fear rises and watch how quickly the emotion transforms into energy. The law of reversal has a secondary reward. It ends the habit of complaint. A man who sees purpose in every burden has no time to lament. His focus sharpens. His speech gains authority. His confidence becomes magnetic. People sense his stability and offer help without being asked. The world loves to assist the man who clearly assists himself. What you once called debt will soon appear as discipline. You will thank the very pressure that once frightened you, for without it, you might never have discovered your power of reversal. The stone that tripped you becomes the step that lifts you. The man who learns to reverse adversity becomes unstoppable. Every future challenge becomes fuel. Nothing external can defeat the one who knows how to transform inner reaction. This is true dominion. not escape from problems, but command over their meaning. The day will come when you look back on this time not as humiliation, but as initiation. You will realize that debt was the hammer that forged your will, the teacher that taught responsibility, the fire that burned away weakness. You will bless the pressure that once oppressed you, for it awakened the strength that slept within. The law of reversal ends debt faster than arithmetic. It ends it by ending the debtor. The man who has learned to serve, to create, to plan, to act with courage, no longer fits the role of one who owes. Life cannot keep him in that form. His conditions must change to match his identity. The moment you stop asking for rescue and begin declaring mastery, the tide turns. That shift in tone is worth more than money. It is the beginning of dominion. Understand, this law is not suggestion. It is certainty. Every burden reversed becomes blessing. Every debt redirected becomes investment. Every fearful thought transformed becomes an act of creation. When you grasp this, you will no longer beg for freedom. You will build it. You will no longer measure progress by balance sheets, but by peace of mind. You will realize that wealth is the natural result of spiritual alignment and debt the temporary shadow cast by fear. Remove the fear and the shadow vanishes. From this moment forward, say to every challenge, "You are my servant." Say to every bill, "You will teach me wisdom." Say to every worry, "You are raw faith, not yet formed." Speak this way long enough, and the universe will agree with you. The man who transforms burden into building material never remains debtor long. Life yields to him because he no longer fights it. He has learned the sacred secret of law. That energy, whether called debt or opportunity, serves the same master, the one who directs it. So take your present circumstance and reverse it. Use fear as fire, duty as discipline, and pressure as proof of power. From this day forward, stop counting what you owe and start calculating what you can create. That is how the debtor becomes the master. That is how you turn bondage into dominion. Money is motion. It was never meant to stand still. The miser kills it through stagnation. The reckless destroy it through waste. But the wise preserve and multiply it through circulation. Wherever money moves under purpose, it grows. Wherever it is hoarded or feared, it withers. The world calls it economy or business, but behind all commerce is one simple principle: circulation governed by law. You cannot own what you do not direct. The man who fears his money serves it. The man who directs it rules it. Debt begins when the flow of money ceases to obey your definiteness. It is not shortage that creates lack, but the absence of control. A man may earn much and still feel poor if his money has no assignment. Confusion in thought breeds confusion in account. Observe nature, for it obeys the same law. The river that flows brings life to every bank it touches. The pond that hoards stagnates and stinks. The current purifies itself by movement. Money, too, must move with intelligence. Its circulation cleanses, strengthens, and sustains, provided it is directed through purpose, gratitude, and order. The debtor errs not because he spends, but because he spends unconsciously. He allows bills to command his spirit instead of commanding the law that governs them. Each payment weakens him because he gives reluctantly, with the thought, "I am losing." The wise man pays with calm joy, for he knows that payment completes a circle of faith. He gives knowing he will receive in greater measure. Andrew Carnegie built an empire upon this understanding. He saw himself not as owner, but as custodian of the world's resources. He circulated wealth through enterprises, workers, schools, and libraries. His money flowed like blood through a body, nourishing every organ it touched. His fortune expanded faster than he could distribute it because he obeyed circulation instead of hoarding. To receive more, one must release more, but with order, not recklessness. Every coin should have a definite duty. A dollar without assignment becomes a deserter. Give first to purpose, then to structure, then to service. Purpose is vision, structure is plan, service is action. When each aligns, money multiplies by obedience to definiteness. The closed fist mentality is the ruin of many. They clutch at coins as though holding them could ensure security. In truth, the closed hand cannot receive. The man who hoards from fear severs his supply line to infinite intelligence. To save with gratitude is strength. To save with dread is decay. Saving is not hoarding. It is organized faith. It declares, I trust tomorrow enough to prepare for it. There must also be balance between economy and expansion. Economy without faith becomes miserliness. Expansion without economy becomes waste. One without the other invites imbalance, and imbalance breeds poverty. The wise man spends with vision, saves with purpose, and gives with joy. Consider the story of a small-town grocer, drowning in accounts and fearing closure. Each month his books filled with unpaid debts, and each month he cursed them. One day he changed his language. Instead of unpaid, he wrote seed of future return. Each evening he gave thanks for the trust his customers had placed in him, believing that law would honor gratitude. Within a year, those customers repaid him, and many brought new ones. His faith doubled his business. Every financial act must be performed with order. Keep record, not for fear, but for mastery. When numbers are known, fear vanishes. Disorder breeds anxiety because it hides truth. The man who knows where each dollar goes walks with peace, even if his purse is light. Precision is faith applied to figures. To ignore your accounts is to declare disbelief in law. The same applies to thought. Mental order precedes material order. If your mind is cluttered with doubt, your affairs will mirror confusion. Begin each day by defining intention, what you shall give, what you shall earn, what you shall learn. Write it, speak it, act upon it. Law loves definiteness. Faith governs this entire process. To circulate money is to express trust in the abundance of the universe. Fear freezes flow. When you pay, do not think of what leaves you. Think of what returns. The man who pays with complaint invites delay. The man who pays with faith invites reward. The difference is tone. The universe reads vibration, not arithmetic. I once met a woman who, though burdened by mortgage and expense, began to bless every payment she made. She would whisper, "This money goes forth to do good and returns multiplied." Within months, her income increased through unexpected channels. Her burden lightened because her thought lightened. Faith had turned outflow into inflow. Money is not moral or immoral. It is obedient. It amplifies the nature of the one who directs it. To a fool, it becomes chaos. To a coward, misery. To a thinker, abundance. The universe entrusts wealth to those who treat it as a sacred flow. If your motive is service, law multiplies it. If your motive is greed, law withholds it, for greed violates order. Definite circulation requires rhythm. Earning, saving, giving, receiving. Each must operate in balance, like breath. Inhale opportunity, exhale gratitude. Inhale income, exhale service. The man who holds his breath from fear suffocates his fortune. Flow is faith in action. There is a profound power in paying joyfully. Each payment declares, I am solvent in spirit. To pay reluctantly is to proclaim lack. To pay gladly is to proclaim abundance. Even when your account is thin, pay with dignity. Money may be scarce, but faith must never be. Law cannot resist the man who acts rich in spirit. The greatest error of debtors is to see each dollar as part of a sum owed rather than part of a circle sustained. Every coin spent with purpose circulates back. Every dollar wasted in fear evaporates. The difference lies not in the spending, but in the state of mind behind it. To master circulation, make a covenant with yourself. Decide that from this day forward, every resource, time, energy, money, will be directed with precision. Keep a small notebook if you must, not as symbol of poverty, but of dominion. Record how your resources serve your purpose. Watch how quickly abundance begins to respect you. Law respects the man who respects himself. When you have practiced this for a season, you will notice change not only in balance sheets, but in bearing. Calm replaces anxiety. Assurance replaces apology. Others sense it. Creditors trust you because you now trust yourself. Investors feel safe near your steadiness. Your reputation becomes capital more valuable than gold. There is no magic here, only law. Circulation is proof of life. Stagnation is proof of fear. Money does not flee from men. Men repel it through disorder. Once you understand that you are both source and steward, supply becomes endless. You cease to chase money. Money begins to seek you. Affirm daily, money moves at my command. Every dollar I direct returns multiplied. Circulation obeys my definiteness. Let this be not vain recitation, but living truth. Act as if these words govern all exchange, and soon they will. You must also practice gratitude for money before you have it. Gratitude is faith in motion. It calls unseen supply into visibility. Thank every coin that passes through your hands as if it were ambassador of abundance. Handle it with respect, not desperation. The manner in which you treat small sums prepares the law to entrust you with greater. The man who has learned definite circulation never again fears shortage. He knows that wealth is not measured by hoard, but by flow. He can lose everything today and rebuild tomorrow, for he has mastered motion. The man who merely saves may lose all through accident. The man who circulates with faith creates anew without effort. Remember this law always. Money is servant, not master. Treat it as such. Command it with calm authority, not worship. It exists to serve purpose, not ego. When used in alignment with faith and service, it becomes fountain instead of flood. Thus, the debtor becomes director. The frightened becomes fearless. The reactive becomes ruler. The figures on the page change only after the spirit within changes posture. When you direct flow, life obeys direction. When you withhold in fear, life mirrors withholding. The choice is constant. The world's wealthiest men are not those with the most possessions, but those with the clearest purpose for their possessions. They understand that every coin must circulate back into service. They build, they give, they grow, and life entrusts them with more to circulate again. When you reach this understanding, payment becomes prayer, and income becomes answer. Money no longer rules you. It obeys you. Fear no longer dictates, faith conducts. Your affairs flow with such order that others marvel, calling it luck or favor, never realizing it is law. And in time you will notice that debt has vanished, not because you chased it, but because circulation healed it. Stagnation caused the wound, movement cured it. You are solvent because you are in motion. Never forget, circulation is mastery of flow under definite purpose. Keep it sacred, and no financial storm can sink you. Even when the world trembles with fear, your flow remains steady, for it is governed not by economy, but by faith. This is how a man commands his fortune, not by clinging, but by directing, not by fearing, but by flowing, not by scarcity, but by certainty. Circulation is the breath of abundance, and he who breathes it consciously can never know debt again. Every outward change is the reflection of an inward transformation. A man cannot rise above the image he holds of himself. Debt, like every form of bondage, feeds upon identity. The debtor keeps himself enslaved because he continues to think, speak, and act as a debtor. The only way to erase debt permanently is to erase the self that created it. You cannot heal poverty while still answering to its name. Most men try to repair their finances while leaving their identities untouched. They balance ledgers, but not minds. They adjust figures, but not faith. And so the problem repeats itself in new forms, new jobs, new creditors, new anxiety. The same man continues to meet himself under different disguises. The law of identity transference begins when you decide to stop living as the one who owes and start living as the one who owns. This transformation is not pretense, it is principle. You do not pretend wealth, you assume wealth. You wear it inwardly until the outer world recognizes it as truth. Just as the actor, by living within his role, becomes believable on the stage, so must you live within the role of freedom until the stage of life adjusts its scenery to fit you. Let us return to Edwin C. Barnes, that penniless man who arrived at Thomas Edison's office covered in dust, determined to become his partner. No one else saw a partner. They saw a tramp. Yet within his mind, Barnes had already accepted the role of equal. He thought as a contributor, not a beggar. That self-concept became magnet. It drew opportunity until the world bowed to it. The power that created his partnership with Edison is the same power that will erase your debt. It is identity assumed until life has no choice but to agree. You must begin at once to speak, move, and think as though you already command your affairs. The subconscious cannot distinguish between reality and conviction. Once it accepts a new image of self, it organizes behavior, emotion, and circumstance to match it. A man who believes he is rich begins to see possibilities that the poor man overlooks. A man who knows he is free attracts opportunities invisible to the enslaved mind. The law of life is correspondence. Outer follows inner, as shadow follows form. Your subconscious is your inner accountant. It tallies every thought of fear as debt, every thought of faith as credit. Each day you make deposits or withdrawals through emotion and speech. Speak lack, and you increase your liabilities. Speak abundance, and you add to your account. When the balance of belief turns positive, external figures follow. This is not poetry. It is exact law. The first task of identity transference is to cleanse language. You can never again say, I am broke, or I cannot afford it. Those words anchor the old identity. Replace them with phrases of dominion. I am reorganizing. I am directing my resources. I am expanding in wisdom. Words are orders to the subconscious. Every statement beginning with I am is a seed of destiny. Sow only what you wish to harvest. The second task is emotional substitution. You must replace guilt with gratitude, worry with anticipation, and resentment with stewardship. The debtor feels guilt whenever he earns, as though he were stealing from his future. The wealthy man feels gratitude for every exchange, knowing that money is servant, not master. Guilt contracts energy. Gratitude expands it. When you pay with joy, earn with faith, and give with purpose, you harmonize with the frequency of increase. There is a law I call the law of radiance. When a man assumes wealth consciousness, he radiates peace. Those around him sense stability, trust, and strength. They do not know why, but they are drawn to him. Opportunities attach themselves to calm assurance like iron filings to a magnet. Even without boasting or demand, the prosperous vibration announces itself. People of influence invite him in. Those of fear move aside. Law cannot resist the tone of conviction. I once met a teacher who owed more than his yearly salary. His life was a quiet struggle against anxiety. One day, after hearing a lecture on self-concept, he decided to act as though he were already a man of prosperity. He began to dress with care, walk with composure, and give small gifts to his students. He spoke with gratitude rather than complaint. Within months, he was promoted to principal, doubling his income. Within 2 years, his debts were gone. He had not changed his career, only his identity. Identity, like habit, is formed through repetition. Autosuggestion is not the chanting of empty phrases. It is rehearsal of being. Each morning, picture yourself as the man already free. How does he walk? How does he speak? How does he conduct his day? Then do as he would do. The mind learns through imitation. Persist long enough, and the old identity will lose strength while the new one becomes automatic. The law of life will never deny a man the right to become what he believes himself to be. It is not chance that divides men into classes. It is conviction. The beggar and the financier breathe the same air, but think from different worlds. One believes he must ask permission to survive. The other believes he was born to direct. Change belief, and you change world. This transformation is not arrogance. True wealth consciousness is humility before law. It is not boasting, I am rich, to impress others. It is calmly knowing, I am aligned with the source of all supply. There is no pride in such knowledge, only peace. Pride seeks attention. Faith seeks alignment. You must also learn the new relationship with money. To the debtor, money is master. To the wealthy, it is worker. Money has no mind of its own. It obeys direction. Treat it as you would a loyal servant. Assign it duties. Send it to worthy purpose, and it will return multiplied. If neglected or abused, it will flee. Never chase it. Command it through order and gratitude. When doubt whispers, you are still the same, reply with authority, I have outgrown that man. Identity shifts gradually, like sunrise replacing night. You may still see shadows, but light has already won. Hold the new image firm. The world changes only after the mind ceases to argue with itself. Say often, I am not the man who owes, I am the man who owns. My thought pays every balance before coin exists. Wealth is the natural state of my soul. Speak these words aloud until they feel true, and they will become true. Observe how others begin to treat you. Their tone changes, though they cannot explain why. Your handshake feels different. Your presence steadies a room. Family begins to relax around you. Employers and clients sense assurance. The world responds to the law of vibration before it recognizes logic. Identity communicates silently but powerfully. You will find that opportunities come unannounced. Old debts settle easily. New income appears through channels you could not have planned. This is not coincidence. It is correspondence. When your inner status rises, your outer circumstances must obey. Law has no favorites, only frequencies. This is how spiritual transference becomes material reality. When belief becomes consistent, faith ceases to strain. You no longer try to believe, you simply know. Effort disappears because identity acts automatically. A man no longer fights gravity once he learns to stand upright. He simply walks. So it is with wealth consciousness. It becomes the normal posture of thought. Understand this. You are not learning how to earn money. You are learning how to be the kind of man to whom money flows. Wealth is not something you get. It is something you reveal. Infinite intelligence supplies everything to the man who has become a fit channel. There will come a day when you realize that your outer transformation began long before results appeared. You will recall the first morning you stood a little taller, the first time you said, I am free, and believed it for half a second longer than yesterday. That moment was the turning point. For from that instant, the world began rearranging itself to reflect your decision. Guard this consciousness as you would guard life itself. Neglect of identity invites regression. 1 hour of fear can undo days of faith. Protect your new self through daily reflection, gratitude, and purposeful action. Continue to rehearse abundance until it becomes instinct. Soon, others will come to you for counsel. They will ask how you turned your life around, how you escaped debt, how you seem unshakably calm. Tell them the truth, that you changed your thought before your fortune, that you stopped rehearsing fear and began rehearsing dominion, that you became a different man long before the world noticed. This is the final liberation, to realize you never owed anything but the duty to become who you truly are. All else was illusion. You were never debtor. You were potential, momentarily asleep. The awakening of that potential erases every trace of bondage. From this day forth, live as the wealthy man you have chosen to become. Speak deliberately, move decisively, plan confidently, give generously, work joyfully, expect continually. Such conduct is not imitation, it is obedience to law. And as you live thus, the world will mirror you faithfully. Debts will vanish as ice before the sun. Opportunities will multiply as surely as dawn follows night. For the man who is free cannot long remain surrounded by chains. Identity is creation. Every thought of self is prophecy. Choose now what prophecy you shall fulfill. Say it once more, and mean it with the authority of a man who has conquered himself. I am not the man who owes. I am the man who owns. My thought pays every balance before coin exists. Wealth is the natural state of my soul. This is not mere affirmation, it is your declaration of emancipation. The debtor has died, the master lives. Debt cannot exist for the man who no longer identifies with limitation. Thought has changed its residence. Fear has been evicted. Faith occupies the throne, and the universe, loyal to its king, rushes to serve. The law of identity transference is the final act of freedom. When you assume the mind of the wealthy man, the world must supply his kingdom. The mind that owns nothing but conviction soon commands everything it desires. This is the power that erases debt forever. For you are not the man who owed, you are the man who decided, and decision held with faith is the true currency of creation.